and I know for sure mine's going to go off at least 10 times. All right, does everyone need the speaker? I guess for the recording we need it, right? Okay, all right. Okay, no problem. All right, so my name is Brett Harris. I own a company called LuvBuds. LuvBuds is one of the premier dispensary supply companies in the country. We basically sell everything that's not marijuana to dispensaries that you sell. So anything from bongs and pipes and rolling papers, except for that's not how I started in the business. I was, after I had sold a company, I was a business consultant, and I'm from Colorado, but I was living in LA. And I would come back to Colorado and analyze my friends' cannabis businesses. And I realized, holy shit, these guys can make a ton of money. So that's how I got involved in the business. I'm born and raised in Denver. My family has been in the import and distribution business as long as I can remember, for 6 decades. I was a business consultant. I've owned several businesses. I've sold several businesses. I've put businesses through bankruptcy. So I've got pretty good experience. I did dabble as a stand-up comedian. I may not be funny to you, but it has worked before. I did own the first ever management consulting firm in recreational cannabis, ever, because Colorado was the first recreational cannabis state. And we went in and we developed their businesses, we did their SOPs, we helped them with their licensing, and we really worked on tax strategy, which, how many of you guys have not opened a store yet? How many of you guys have been in business for less than 1 year? Okay, so there are some things that are about to come up in your lives that you may or may not be aware of, and we're going to talk about those things. We'll talk about 280E really quickly for a little bit, but I won't get into too much depth. And how many of you guys buy your stuff on LeafLink or LeafTrade? Anybody? So a little commercial for them. LeafLink and LeafTrade are a way that dispensaries buy their edibles from the other suppliers within their own home state. LuvBuds is the only non-THC brand on those platforms in every state, so you can place orders for LuvBuds products on there. Okay, so there are a bunch of things that are going to affect your businesses in cannabis, obviously. Effective merchandising, which is one of the things we're going to get into, but what I want to talk to you guys about, first of all, is 280E. How many of you guys are aware of what 280E is? One person. Okay. So I'm going to come down here. 280E is the U.S. Department of Revenue telling you that your business is illegal. Since what they consider cannabis to be the trafficking of an illegal narcotic, okay? And that's the way it is now. That's the way it's going to be for a while. The Safe Banking Act has passed the House. It has not passed the Senate yet. There might be some changes to it, but as of today, we are all, according to the federal government, trafficking illegal narcotics, okay? The tax code is called 280E. It's very important. 280E basically states that since you're selling an illegal narcotic, you may not take the same deductions for your business that a standard business will take. You are only allowed to write off your cost of goods. That means that your employees, your advertising, your utilities, all of those things are not able to be written off of your tax return. So you're paying taxes on your gross profit, not your net profit. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail, okay? Personnel. How many of you guys are millennials? None? Okay. I'm almost 50, and dealing with millennials, which is basically your workforce, is different. I'm not saying whether it's better or worse, but it's different. Understanding who your workforce, and today, guys, I can tell you, we run a warehouse. It's very difficult to get people to come to work because they're getting paid to stay home. I mean, that's a fact. But dealing with different types of employees is really, really key, and especially on the front end of a dispensary, it's everything to your business, right? When you walk into a store, that first person that approaches you, you know whether or not you're going to do business in that store right away. So the people that work for your company are ultimately very, very important. So personnel is something. I will tell you guys this, the turnover in this business is extraordinary. We deal with buyers. It's very rare that a buyer for a dispensary is there for a calendar year. Bud tenders are even worse. They will leave you for 25, 50 cents an hour more to go to a dispensary down the street. Maintaining your employees and reducing turnover is humongously beneficial. The best operators in this industry have figured out a way to keep their employees and to, what you spend on retraining employees is at least 50% of their salary for the first year. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Competition. There are different rules in different states. Colorado's got just under 800 stores for a population of 7 million people. Oklahoma's got 2,200 stores for a population of about 400 people. California's got 6,000 stores for a population of 60 million people. So you're gonna have different competition based on which states that you're in. I can tell you Oklahoma gave away too many licenses in my opinion, and Colorado gave away too few. The less licenses, the less operators per population, the more chances you have to be ultimately successful. I'd say probably, I think the number is something like 73% of people in the United States have smoked pot within the last 5 years. It's a big pool of potential customers. But if you got 2,200 dispensaries in a 4 million person state, you better be a damn good operator because competition is extreme. Marketing expenses. I'm going to give you guys some hints on to get away from not being able to have those things written off. Like if you advertise as a head shop instead of a dispensary, you might be able to write off that advertising. Okay. Having the right products at the right price. Potheads are very, very good consumers. Instagram and Twitter and all these social media platforms, they're well aware of what something is supposed to be priced at for the most part. So pricing your stuff at the right price, having the right product at the right time at the right price, knowing what's in fashion, what's not in fashion, and selling it for the right price is hugely important for the success of any dispensary. And dazzle your customer with selection. One thing that we do at LuvBud's, we printed out a catalog last week on the 23rd of July. Today's the 5th or 6th of August. We've already added 120 new products since I printed that catalog. And we've discontinued probably 80. And that's the way it has to work. I will tell you guys right now, as a dispensary dealer, 30% of my revenue is, over the past 90 days, are products that we brought in that are less than 90 days old. So cycling your inventory, you've got two types of customers in the dispensary business. You've got locals, people that live within a 1.5 mile radius of your store or that drive past your store to and from work. That will be at your store once a week, sometimes twice a week, sometimes twice a month. So you've got locals, and then you've got tourists, okay? Obviously, those people that are in the medical business don't have the tourist issue unless you've got reciprocal licenses with people from other states. But tourism is the key driving factor for any successful recreational dispensary. Especially in Colorado, when people wanted to go skiing, they were so excited that they were able to walk into a dispensary and buy pot legally. That was all the rave. Now that the country is becoming more and more legal, welcome, sir. Now that the country is becoming more and more legal, that's not necessarily the case, but the transient customer that comes in to buy something from you one time, that's great. But for your locals, the people that come back on a regular basis, they don't want to see the exact same bong. They don't want to see the exact same strain. They don't want to see the exact same thing on sale every week. Rotating those items and giving people a reason to come back to your dispensary versus go to your competitor down the road is ultimately the most important thing. Okay? Effective merchandising. What's a good example? Listen, I walk into Target and I find it really hard to leave Target without spending $500 or $600. Does everyone have that problem? So the reason why that happens is because they've studied you and the way you work and the way you walk and what you look at and what's an eye line and all that stuff. And they switch things up until they get it right? Every single square footage of that store is intended to produce a certain revenue per square foot. And this industry is full of mom and pops, and then there are some multi-chain operators, and then there are some big money chains that are starting to buy everybody up. You guys have heard of those guys. You're all hoping that one of them pick you up one of these days. Those guys have decided how to do it, and they've figured out how to do it right. So when they buy your store for $6 million, they know that they're going to triple your revenue and they're going to triple your price per square foot. Now, if you've already maximized that, it makes the value of your store that much higher. Okay, so avoid being it has everything to do with the layout, how you merchandise your store. Avoid being stale. I can't tell you how many just terrible dispensaries that you walk into and it's the same shit, the same dusty bong that didn't sell 3 months ago that's still on their top shelf. Not only that, they haven't even cleaned it, so it looks old, right? They've got the same papers. They haven't mixed up the coloring. They haven't mixed up anything. And you just don't ever want to go back in there, and guess what? People usually don't. Continually identify new products. I can tell you that I get to see new products before they come to market, and there are thousands, and identifying and deciding which ones. For instance, right now, the brand is Luca, the Luca Seahorse, going crazy. We sell the Terp Pen, that's going crazy. For a while, Puffco was going crazy, and now Carta has come out with an item that I think is better and less expensive. Student Glass is a new item that's coming out. It's a great big gravity bong. It's super expensive, but potheads that can afford it will pay anything for it to get them because they're so hard to find. But if your store is on top of that and your store has a great relationship with your supplier and you're notified of these new things as soon as they're available, it's going to set you apart from everybody else. So very, very important. I already said that. I think probably the most successful dispensaries that we work with are ones that actually call us and ask us what's on trend. You know, it's not just, listen, there's different personas of buyers or people that run dispensaries. There's owner-operators. There are people that are, millionaires and they've got a manager in there. Sometimes they got a kid with a bone in their nose with their ears, with the rings in it, and they're just selling pot, and that guy's gonna leave in 5 weeks, and the next person that comes in is the best bud tender becomes the buyer. And then there's the owner-operator. It's so important that whoever is doing that position, buying, talks to the vendors and understands what's coming, right? I mean, when we come out, like Student Glass is a great example. We only get an allotment of those. If we get 50 of them at a time, we're very, very fortunate. And those customers that are in contact with us all the time know when they're landing, know when to place their orders, and those are the guys that get it. And that's the difference between this guy in Aden, Michigan, and this guy in Aden, Michigan having a huge rush of people, right? So talking to being in touch with them. There's very few vendors in this business that aren't interested in talking to you on a regular basis. So obviously it's very difficult for us to do with everybody all the time, but the people that stay in touch with us, that opt into our email, that read the emails, that actually, you don't have to spend time going through all of the stuff, but paying attention to what's coming out, what's new, is so vitally important in this business, and I think that not enough people pay attention to that. Salesmanship is also really big. We'll get a little bit more into that, but so often it's so easy for a salesperson or a bud tender to just say, hey, this is what's on sale, and push them to that. Well, it's on sale because that's the least expensive thing you're trying to sell. That's the last place you want to start. We'll get into a little bit of salesmanship later, but take them to the highest grade strain first. All right, 280E, I think I already talked about it a little bit. I'm not going to bore you guys with tax code law. We sell bongs, for Christ's sake. It's a little bit boring talking about tax code, but it's something that you've got to be very, very aware about it. And well, let's get into this. So these are the types of things that cannot be written off in a standard dispensary. Okay, employee salaries, utility costs, health insurance, marketing and advertising, repairs and maintenance, rental fees. How many of you guys are not first time but have owned businesses before? Okay, so you guys have looked at a balance sheet and a P&L statement, right? And you know that you got your revenue, your cost of goods, then you got your gross profit. Well, imagine paying taxes on the gross profit, not the net profit. And I'll show you what those numbers look like. It's very scary, and quite frankly, in Colorado, some of the most successful chains that didn't follow 280E rules and did not come up with a tax strategy had to sell their companies because their tax obligations were in the $60, $70 million range. I think they sold their 5 stores for $120 million. $72 million went straight to the government for back taxes, plus they had to pay capital gains on the sale. So they wound up making tons of money and losing money after they paid all their capital gains and back taxes to the IRS. They spent 6 years building an empire that they got nothing out of. So this is kind of what I was talking about here. I won't get into the way here. So if you're a non-cannabis business and you do $1 million in revenue and your cost of goods are $500,000, your gross income is $500,000, right? Same thing with a cannabis, except for your deductible business expenses are $200,000, and in cannabis, you get 0 credit. So your taxable income on a non-cannabis business is $300,000. Your taxable income on a cannabis business is $500,000. That makes your effective tax rate versus gross income 30% versus 18%. Okay, this is the, when I've done this program for like in Oklahoma City when they first legalized and I had a room of 200 people, this was the one that made everyone drop their pants and drop their jaws. They couldn't believe that. Yeah, if you want to, here's a copy of it. You can keep that. There you go. This is very, very significant for people that understand or own businesses before that what this means. Okay. You can have great revenue and lose money because of 280E. All well-run businesses. Some businesses make a 2.5% margin, like Costco, for instance. They're running on 8, 9%. They're lucky if they net 2.5%, but they're doing billions in revenue. A really good business, I think everyone would agree, 20% is pretty good to net, right? Under certain circumstances, a cannabis business can lose as much as 12 to 15% of its net income because of 280E. That means they're spending too much money on marketing, too much money on their employees, and they're not paying attention to this tax law. Okay? If you are a well-run cannabis without a tax strategy and ancillary sales, you can easily show a large profit that will be eaten up by taxes. Yes, please.
We have a dispensary. Is that also applicable to the
This is.
We have a processing lab.
So it's like where you manufacture products? So primarily in your business, everything is cost of goods, right? There are some expenses that'll be thrown out, like your marketing expenses, all that stuff, that you won't be able to write off. But your employees, because they're part of your cost of goods. So if you're manufacturing, it's a little bit different, which, so that's why some dispensaries now have their bud tenders actually rolling joints or doing things like that, right? If they're spending time like that. And by the way, I want to make something very clear to you. I am not a CPA. I am not giving tax advice. Yeah, everyone should have a cannabis CPA and a cannabis attorney. If you're in this business and you don't have, and by the way, your attorney from your other business or your cousin's nephew that just graduated law school, that is not the way to go in this business. You want somebody who's been in the business, that understands cannabis law, that understands cannabis state law, and you want a CPA that understands cannabis tax law. Without that, you're lost, because your old CPA that you've worked with for 30 years on your other businesses doesn't know shit about cannabis, doesn't understand 280E, doesn't understand what you can and can't do, and can't show you the loopholes to help you prevent some of these things. So do yourself a favor, go find the top guy in your city, state, whatever, that understands cannabis law and cannabis taxes, okay? 280E applies to cannabis sales only. So when I was a consultant, and also my background was in importing and distribution, I was kind of like, but what if they're selling stuff that's not cannabis, right? What if they're treating themselves like a head shop too? And I ran that through. We went through the top CPAs in Colorado and the top attorneys in Colorado, and I kept presenting this to them until there was finally a court case where they went through. And basically what we came up with, if 10% of your revenue is non-cannabis sales, then you can not only make a profit on those non-cannabis items, but 10% of your employees, 10% of your rent, 10%. So ancillary sales, treating yourself like a head shop, not only is wildly profitable and gives your customers more ways to spend their money when they walk in the door, but there's tax benefits to it. In this case, for instance, that's why I created LuvBuds. When I first created LuvBuds, it was a consignment business. We would put all of the products in the store for free. Well, when you first walked into a store in Colorado, there were 3 glass cabinets with pot in it and 2 kids that, were tattooed and long hair. And that was it. They were just someone there selling you pot. And I was always saying, why don't you turn yourself into a head shop? Why aren't you? Some didn't even sell rolling papers or lighters. I never understood that. And they're like, oh, we have a head shop down the street that we have a deal with. They send me customers and I send them customers. And I said, why don't you give them all your cash too while you're at it, right? Like, you guys open the door for one reason. Anyone know what that is? Make money. There we go. So giving your business to the guy down the street doesn't make any sense at all, right? It's like a hamburger shop that sends you down the street to go buy fries. It's a little bit ridiculous. So the key is, anyone that it's kind of like going to Vegas. I always kind of equate it. If you land in Vegas on the plane and you have cash in your pocket, you've agreed to give it to Las Vegas, okay? That's the way cannabis dispensaries should be treated. If they come into your place and they have money in their pocket, how many of you guys have got credit card processing already? No one. You do for your store. So initially, most of it's going to be cash, okay? That'll change. There will be banks that will get FDIC approved and they'll get special waivers and all those dispensaries will start giving free money to that bank. Banks are not interested in cash. What ends up happening, you make your deposits, they end up wrapping your cash in cellophane, building pallets and sending it to the Federal Reserve. They are not interested in cash. It actually costs them money. But there will be banks that will take it. In Colorado, you pay $2,500 a month for that account, and they charge you, I think, 1.8% of all your cash deposits. They keep that. Huh? You cannot write that off. No, because it's a business expense. It's not part of cost of goods. So I'm just telling you guys listen, I love the business and everyone loves the business, but there are some really hard things that you have to understand and deal with before you get too in deep. And if you haven't filed your first tax return as a cannabis business owner, these are things that you got to pay attention to. And I'm going to give you guys some hints on what you can do going forward to relieve some of these things, okay? Selling paraphernalia, treating yourself like a gift shop, a boutique, a head shop. A lot of people sell clothing. Not just things that I sell. I mean, anything that you sell, if your revenue is $1 million, I think I've got another slide here. So if you're this one here is a non-cannabis business, and this is a cannabis with no paraphernalia or no other non-THC products, and the other one does have it. You can take down your effective rate 2%. If that's just 20% of your total, or 16.67% of your total revenue, you can take down your effective tax rate, okay? Again, I just kind of put round numbers in here, yes?
You may not know this, but is CBD in the same umbrella as THC?
No.
Derived from hemp cannabis?
If it's derived from hemp cannabis, I believe it's treated differently, because there are CBD dispensaries all over the country that this does not apply to.
Okay.
I believe THC, any THC or CBD derived from cannabis strictly, I believe, apply to these things, but some states are different. You want to ask your CPA. Yeah, it would be different by state. I know in Colorado, you can't sell hemp CBD in a dispensary. You can only sell THC or cannabis CBD. Why? Because the state doesn't make money on hemp CBD. Believe me, if the state's not making money, they're not letting you do it. Yes? That's right. How many of you guys have got a good controller or a CFO or a bookkeeper? I will tell you guys, that's one of the things in your life that you want to make sure you always have if you're a business owner is an outstanding accountant, whether you call them your bookkeeper, your controller, your CFO. You're at 100% right. If you don't have accurate books, they're just going to come in here and say these books don't make any sense, and we're going to charge you on the full thing and F you. And yes.
Does it make a difference if they're in the CBD, you just want CFO, making sure that they're certified CFO?
Listen, the word CFO, I don't know if there's anything such thing as a certified CFO, but it's sort of levels of accountant. I can tell you, my company's pretty big, and I still call my guy a controller because that's what he does. A controller reports on actual day-to-day business activities. A CFO is someone who's more forward-thinking, someone who's doing cash flow and budgeting and all that kind of stuff. I mean, no, they don't have to. Listen, numbers are numbers, and a good numbers person is going to be able, right? You buy something, you manufacture it, you've got costs there. I mean, any accountant should be able to figure out how to apply the numbers properly. And quite frankly, in every one of your states, nobody's going to know how to do it because no one's ever done it. It's all brand new. So in 4 years from now, there's going to be, if you apply for a controller in the cannabis space, there's going to be 300 people that apply, right? That actually have experience. One really intelligent thing is hire people from other states. People are they're all willing to move to new states. And there are people in Colorado and Washington and Oregon and Nevada and California that have done this. And bud tenders from those states, they know the business. It makes a hell of a lot of sense to do your Indeed ad to those other states that are legal when you first open, so you can get somebody here who actually knows what the hell they're doing. The value of those people, a really, really good bud tender or general manager out of a store that's been doing it for 7 years is wildly valuable to a new market, okay? But anyways, I just wanted to give you guys, and these are round numbers, and my math is probably accurate, but just to give you an idea, you can't just sell pot. You've got to sell other stuff, and you don't have to buy it from me, but we're a good place to buy it. But you've got to not only merchandise your cannabis right and display it right and do the humidity right and have different strains, but all this other stuff that you can sell not only is wildly profitable, but there's tax exemptions that go along with it. So that was the reason why I developed LuvBud. Consult your tax professional. I already went over that. One other note. Some CPAs do it differently, all right? And that's what, have you ever walked into a dispensary where it's this great big building and then you go through this little door and you go through this little room and you get your stuff there? Well, that CPA has told them, you only have to pay taxes for the percentage of your square footage that's actually being used to dispense marijuana, okay? So the front room could be a boutique, it can be a waiting room, it could be whatever. That square footage, as long as you're not dispensing marijuana out of it, can actually be written off. So there are different rules that apply to different types of businesses, and your attorney and your CPA should be able to put together an optimal tax strategy for your business. I'm sorry, you had a question? It's every state is so different. When it comes to the federal government, I think that there is a rule. It's got to actually be a closed-off room. Okay. But don't quote me on that. I haven't been consulting for a long time. But so square footage is one way, and either way, you're far better off making sure you're selling things that are not CBD and THC. Okay. Training your staff to sell. So say your store is in a fairly high traffic area and you're seeing anywhere from 50 to 100 people a day. I don't know a good number. Let's just say 100 for a round number. Every single one of those people has got a value, right? Every single person should be worth $30, $50, $100. I'll tell you, in those states where cash is being transferred versus credit cards or debit cards, that number's lower. Those places that where only cash is accepted, I recommend highly that you put an ATM machine in your store, okay? You want them to have as much cash as possible. We understand that because, right, when they walk to the door, whatever's in their pocket, they've agreed to give to you even though they don't know it, okay? This is just basic business, right? You're there to sell them as much stuff as they can afford. If they only have cash and they don't have a debit card, then you got to give them a way to get more cash, okay? The key to any successful business is continually identifying your average transaction and improving your average transaction. Actually, there's a picture there of an item that we came up with a couple years ago. It comes with 100 pipes, 100 chillums. There's a place to put lighters. How many of you guys have ever went to the grocery store to buy Tic Tacs? Nobody. But you do buy Tic Tacs because they're right there when you check out, right? So this little 7-inch by 7-inch footprint produces probably $70 to $80 of additional revenue per 20 people per day. Okay? So we developed that a long time ago. It's been wildly successful. I think those pipes cost $1 a piece. If you wanted to sell them for $5, you can sell them for $5. Some people sell them for $7. You got an 80% margin. It doesn't take up any space on your desk. And if your bud tenders are trained to ask the right questions, that display will increase your average transaction $1.74 per person. Is that crazy? That little thing right there. So you talk about maximizing your ROI per square foot, things like that kill it. A colorful back wall display. A lot of dispensaries make the mistake of putting everything in a glass counter and you got to pull it out. If you put it up right there behind the bud tender and it's at eye level and people can see it, you want to put a whole row of Carta, focus, V-focus things. You want to put those at eye level. Those are big money items. Pipes and stuff you can put down there. Those are low dollar items. But you want to take your high dollar items, put them up high, because if your locals know you have it, the next time they come back, they'll bring the cash to buy it if they want it, right? Okay, so the goal again is average transaction increase. All right, employee turnover, we talked about that a little bit. That ugly dude, I put that up there so you guys could see my beautiful wife. That's why. The key thing about employees and the turnover of employees is that, a lot of people want to play for they used to want to play for the New England Patriots, and not a lot of people wanted to play for the Cleveland Browns, no offense to the Cleveland people. You want to be part of a winning team, right? How do you create a team in your thing? Uniforms are a great way if everyone's wearing the same outfits, right? Or there's, we made those face masks. Stand up and show everyone that beautiful thing. We made those face masks. And we did custom face masks for dispensaries all over the country. It was a way for everyone to kind of deal with the COVID thing together and make some fun of it. But those dispensaries that did that, their teams stuck together. If they're all wearing the same uniform, they stick together. If all of your employees think that they're individuals coming there for a job, you're going to lose them, right? I always tell, back early on, I used to tell the bud tenders in Colorado, you guys don't understand how valuable you're going to be to these new states. If you make this your career and not your job. I mean, listen, this business is still in its infancy. It's still brand new, right? Until the Fed legalizes it and we have 10 years of the whole country being legal, this business is in its infancy. If you teach your employees that I'm going to hire you, I'm going to pay you this. If you stay here for this long, I'm going to pay you this, right? You put that carrot in front of them and say, I want this to be a career decision for you, not a job. People leave jobs all the time. People rarely leave careers, right? And if they understand something that you now have got an opportunity to develop a career in the fastest growing industry that America has seen in a long time, you're going to be, when the next state legalizes and you've been doing this for 3 years, you are worth $60,000, $70,000 a year to that new owner, right? How many of you guys are opening your store, don't know where the first base is, and if you had somebody who's been in Colorado for the last 10 years doing it, you would pay them 60 or 70 grand, right? That makes a ton of sense, right? And it would be the best money that you ever spent because what's in their heads, you have no idea. It's a great investment, and also you probably have an ambitious kid that wants to be bigger. They understand how much money their boss has always made, and they now want to start making a living, and they want to make this their career. So, talking about hiring people from legal states already is a very, very good idea. You want to give people chances, but you want to discourage hiring people that are just looking for jobs. If you can create a team environment, do something special for them. Do rewards, give them recognition, make them feel like they're the kings and queens of the world. Yes.
Do you
Yeah.
want to recruit one of these people from Colorado to help them.
Yeah.
Is there like some group that's focused on that?
There are cannabis-specific job boards. If you send me an email, I'll be able to email them to you. But you can look them up. I gotta be honest with you, Craigslist. You can do Craigslist in any city or state. Craigslist is one of the more popular places to hire in this industry. But Indeed, say we're looking for a GM with experience in legal states, and post that. They can look at it from all over the place. Indeed has been great as well. The job boards at college campuses, yeah.
Sorry, just one thought. Is there any, for people who they're starting the minors and majors in cannabis in colleges?
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
My son's actually in the program.
Okay.
So do you have any thoughts on that in terms of?
Yeah, I mean, listen, clearly the university system understands that this industry is not going anywhere. I wasn't aware that there was actually college courses. I think it's hilarious. Kentucky, I think it's hilarious. I thought it was really hilarious when they shut down the country for 3 months, told everyone to stay home, sent money to potheads, and left dispensaries as essential businesses. I really could not have drawn it up any better than as like I was like plotting or something, But now there's college courses. It's amazing how far I was involved in this industry from the very beginning when no dispensaries had checking accounts and everyone was carrying around like literally bags of cash. And when I was consulting, I would get bags of cash, and Chase kicked me out because my money smelled like pot. And where it's gone now, there's courses. So I would anticipate things like that are going to continue to grow. You guys got to remember something. I mean, there is so much money moving into this industry. I don't know what the billions of sales it was last year, but it's something like 30 times what it was in 2015. So, and it's, I would say it's probably $1 trillion industry within the next 10 years, which is ridiculous. But yeah, those employees, they're not hard to get. There's all these chains all over Colorado, Washington, and Oregon. I would try to find somebody who's been in the business for 10 years, right? If I was going to move somebody and pay them 60, 70 grand. So Colorado, Washington, Oregon are really the first places to start. Maybe they've worked for a couple different places and they've seen a couple different ways things have done. Like Native Roots is a big chain in Colorado, and having a store manager that's been in that system for 6 or 7 years is wildly valuable to somebody opening up in a new state. And these kids are more than happy to move. The more you invest in your team, the more they'll feel part of your family. I probably don't do this very well. I make every employee that works for my company feel like part of my family. And I think my exec members kind of get mad at me because some of them aren't as loyal as I'd like them to be. But I try really hard to make people feel. A lot of cannabis business owners think that they're Tony Montana, that they're legalized drug dealers, and they act that way, and those employees leave quickly. So if you just act like one of the guys or girls, and I got to tell you, I never had a ponytail before. Cannabis has done this to me, as COVID did, right? I'm a lot more well-respected walking into a dispensary with a long hair and a white beard than I was before. I started the business wearing suits. I can tell you, those of you guys that are wearing suits here, it'll probably be the last time you wear suits to a cannabis event. They used to think I was a Fed. Funny story. When I first walked into a dispensary selling them stuff, I went in there with roach clips. You guys all know what roach clips are? Like a sticks with little clips on the end. And the bud tenders looked at me and said, "What are those?" And I said, "What are you talking about? You know what roach clips are? I thought those was a dispensary." They go, "Don't you have any dab tools?" And I go, "What are those?" That was my first foray. So there's differences in generations here. Fortunately, the one thing in common is all these generations love marijuana, but there's huge differences. And when you're buying stuff for your store, you have to keep that in mind. We intentionally buy stuff that are intended for women buyers. Not a lot of guys in my position do that. Well, we do that because women like different things than men, and different age groups. How many of you guys are over 40 and remember protopipes and dugouts? Okay. Well, and graphics bongs. Remember graphics? Well, we brought all those products back to market. They were gone, and we brought those things back because guys over 40 walk into a dispensary. God bless you. Guys over 40 walk into. God bless you again. You want to make everybody listen. The first 4 or 5 times that somebody walks into a dispensary, they're uncomfortable. All right. The first time I bought pot in a store in Denver, it was like the first weekend. I literally walked outside, and there was a cop car in the parking lot, and I looked at the cops, and they looked at me, and we all started laughing. Okay. That still is going on in these new states, right? It's still going on. It's uncomfortable. So anything that you can do to make a 50-year-old guy feel comfortable seeing something from his past, a prototype or a dugout or a graphic, that's hugely valuable, right? And then, listen, the kids love Rick and Morty, and although most of that's stolen intellectual property, you have that stuff in there to make them smile. I'll tell you, as a rule, we've stopped buying from factories that steal U.S. intellectual property. So Rick and Morty used to be open source. Warner Brothers just bought them for the new season. So we have discontinued selling anything with Rick and Morty on it. It's hard to deal with, but as an importer myself, we have determined we are no longer going to support factories that steal U.S. intellectual property, which I think is hugely valuable, and I think you guys should pay attention to that at your store. Thank you. And listen, there's brands like Cookies. Cookies has their own stuff. It's really, really cool, but it's being knocked off at a crazy pace, so you got to be careful to buy the real. If it's half the price, it's stolen intellectual property, okay? Little side note, okay? Custom branding. Potheads, think about your typical pothead sitting at home with their rolling tray and their lighter and however else they do it, their dab, their torch, whatever. That thing is sitting on their coffee table, right? Well, it could either say raw rolling papers, or it could have the name of your dispensary on it, right? Your cones, your rolling joints. Your cones could either say raw on them, or they could have your dispensary name on them, right? Your lighters, your grinders, your dab mats. I mean, there are so many things that you can customize. And if you guys all spent money on your logos, you all got great graphic designers, and you came up with a cool logo and a cool slogan and all that, don't you want that to be sitting on your customer's coffee table every day? So we sell raw, and we sell zigzags, and we sell all that stuff, but we do custom stuff for almost all of our customers, whether it be lighters that you can sell or give away, or rolling trays, or lanyards. Customizing your stuff is a really, really good idea, and it also helps with your employees because they start feeling like something bigger than them, right? Uniforms, we talked about millennials, I won't go over again. Something that when you're hiring your staff and you're bringing on bud tenders, I kind of equate them to bartenders, but it's a little bit different. Bartenders will listen to you if you want them to. Bud tenders have got a really, really big job because they've got multiple roles. They're a doctor, right? If you're in a medical dispensary, someone's got a problem and they've heard that marijuana helps this problem. Your bud tenders have got to understand the product and what it can and can't do, okay? So they act as a doctor. They act as a pharmacist, right? Sometimes you went to the pharmacist and said, "God, my ass is itching. What do I need, right?" And they tell you what to use. A lot of your customers will come in, especially new customers in new states, and say, I smoked pot when I was in college, and some made me laugh, and some made me fall asleep, and some made me eat too much, and some of them made me meat. And your bud tender needs to be able to tell them, well, that's because you were on a hybrid or a sativa or an indica. And by the way, when you did it in college, it was only 12%. This is 30%. So they're a pharmacist, right? They should be a connoisseur. It's really weird when you hire people and say, "Do you do drugs?" and expect them to say yes. That's a new thing for me. If we were to do drug testing, it would be to make sure that my employees smoke pot. I'll tell you, you can't be a bud tender and not be a connoisseur of the product, right? They have to know what they're selling. right? Guys that work at ski shops, they've tried all the different skis. Guys that sell motorcycles have driven motorcycles. People, you know, so the people that work at your dispensary have got to be connoisseurs. They have to understand the product, and you, as part of a perk of owning the business or as working for your business, you need to supply them with samples so that they can make educated decisions and be able to educate your customers. I will tell you, if you don't do it, they're going to steal it. Theft is think about this. If somebody's making 20 bucks an hour and an eighth costs 80 bucks and an eighth can fit in your pocket like that, believe me, you're losing it. And please don't tell me that your employees don't steal from you. They all do. The only way that they won't is if you give them so much free stuff and you know where it's going out, you make it part of your cost of goods, that they have no reason to steal from you. Okay? They're going to steal. It's too easy. It's too easy to palm it. Now, how I get away from it is I make sure that they know that I've got 50 cameras in my warehouse. And when you go in my office, I've got like it looks like the Battlestar Galactica headboard, you know, like they can see that I've got cameras on everything. And also, I mean, I like to think my employees love me and that they wouldn't steal from me, but they do. It's too easy. So keep that in mind. It's part of the cost of doing business, but if you give them free samples from time to time and you ask them to really understand the product and be able to give good recommendations, they don't have any need to steal from you. You're giving them free stuff. And then they have no reason to steal from you because you're so good to them, they don't want to be fired. So think about it from the other side. Be so good to them, give them so much free stuff, make the perks of working for you so good that they don't want to be fired. They don't want to be caught doing something wrong. You'll still catch people stealing from you. Make sure you put cameras up. Make sure that they know that the cameras are up, and make sure that they know that the screens of these cameras are in your office and you watch it all day long. They'll still steal from you. Okay, but all right, connoisseur. They have to be a product expert. But number one, and one thing that I think most people don't understand is that they have to be a salesperson. They have to sell stuff. Who knows the difference between a salesperson and an order taker? All right. Salesmanship, the skills and methods used in selling or promoting commercial products. There are two kinds of bud tenders, salespeople and order takers. A salesperson takes control of the transaction, makes unsolicited recommendations, suggestive selling, steers a customer towards a more rewarding experience, doesn't let customers leave without all the best items. They have questions to suit the customer's needs, whether the customer knows it or not, has amazing product knowledge, has tried them, and has an opinion. They are an expert. An order taker allows the customer to control the transaction, takes direction from the customer, allows the customer to pick out what they want versus what is best, allows the customer to leave with money intended for this transaction, lets the customer spend money at head shops or competitors, has no idea about the products available. The single goal for your bud tender is to increase your average transaction, period, end of story. Okay? Order takers. How many of you guys have went somewhere and there's order takers? Fast food, right? Those are order takers. Salespeople is totally different. And you also don't want to be an annoying salesperson. You don't want to be like a car dealership. But you want to, listen, you can buy the bud that's on sale that's 22%, that'll get you high and you'll have a decent experience, and that's 50 bucks. Or you can buy the 35% Maui Wowie crazy stuff that's 80 bucks, and you can buy half of it. Which one are you going to enjoy more? Exactly. So your job is to train your bud tenders to sell the best experience, not the cheapest bud. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Listen, everyone's had swag weed and everyone's had high quality weed. Which is a better experience? If it costs twice as much and you get half as much, is that better for your customer than buying double the shit, right? So that's what your bud tenders should be trained on, okay? Sorry, I've done like this or similar talks so many times that some things I put stuff out of order. And also, by the way, if anybody has any question in the middle of anything, go ahead, raise your hand. Merchandising your product, we've already talked about that. Take control of the transaction. You know, the very first thing that a bud tender should say is, what kind of experience are you looking for? right? What's the experience you're looking for? If you got somebody in from out of town that hasn't smoked pot for 20 years and him and his wife have decided we're gonna get high tonight, right? That's very, very different than the experienced pothead that has been buying everything 2 blocks away from you and is coming to your store for the first time. Those are different people. That guy or that girl is worth $200 to $300 a week. The tourist might be worth $200 today, but you never see him again, right? So understanding who the customer is when they come in and having a bud tender that can recognize that type of customer and how to maximize your transaction and develop a relationship are very, very different things, okay? Yeah, yeah. Now in certain states, actually I just met somebody here in Illinois that has the first consumption lounge. Listen, the ones that I know of that are wildly successful, they don't even sell the bad stuff for their consumption lounge. They only sell the high-end stuff and they provide them with stuff. I heard that they rent pipes. I've never heard of that idea before. They rent pipes and then clean them. I'd say you just sell them for double what you pay for them and let them use them. Anyways, I'll tell you, the consumption business, it's really, really new. It's really, really new. Even in Colorado, there's only like 6 or 7 of them. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how they pan out. There's a lot of additional liability getting people high in your facility and letting them drive home. So I don't know how that's going to play off on a national level. I guess we'll see with all things in this business. Most things we don't know. I don't have an opinion yet because I don't think there's enough data to form any opinions. Let's see what else is here. Do not start with the sales. Have product merchandised correctly. See the top of the trend. Train your salespeople to ask the right questions. All right. So starting off the conversation is what kind of experience are you looking for? A lot of people just are looking, but even that guy that's in line that just says, I want to join and I want this, I want that. Slow them down. Slow them down. By the way, did you know we have this strain that's 35%? Are you having trouble sleeping? Do you have any back pain? I mean, there's all these sort of questions that if your bud tender throws them out there, you're going to lead your customer to an entirely different direction. And by the way, I've done enough of these trainings on site that I've trained bud tenders to change the way that they interact with customers so much that a customer will literally leave, go to an ATM, and come back because the bud tender did such a good job convincing them that they needed more money, okay? It can happen here. It can happen in this business. And if you don't train your bud tenders well on how to be salespeople versus order takers, you're going to lose transactions, average transactions. I mean, that's what the business is all about. It's increasing your average transaction. Okay. Skip around here. Okay. We're at booth 901. I'm trying to make this a commercial, but LuvBud has been around for a long time. We deal with some of the largest chains in the country. We deal with tons of mom and pops. We sell basically anything that you need. There's some categories we don't do very well, so we don't do it. Everyone that is here is welcome to come down to our booth. We're actually doing, we never do cash and carry, but there really wasn't as many dispensaries as we thought, so we're doing cash and carry after 1 p.m. You're welcome to come buy some stuff. And I am here for another, how much time do we have? 5 minutes. I used up the whole time. Wow, my wife tells me I like to talk. Listen, me and other old guys in the business have been doing it a long time, and we really want to make sure that you're successful. Are there any questions? If you feel free to ask me now, and if not, you can come find me later. Yes. Oh, you were stretching. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, sir.
So if you're a brand and trying to increase your sales, how much influence do you let them have with the bud tenders?
As far as like.
Let's say I'm a brand, I'm trying to increase my sales into your dispensary. Do you let us come on in and talk to your bud tenders?
Yeah, I mean, listen. Several brands do things for bud tenders like spiffs and incentive programs and things like that. Some states it's legal, some states it's not legal. Listen, what do I do to get bud tenders to want to sell my brand? We send tons of free stuff. You know, I send tons of free stuff with our name on it. We sent those masks out to bud tenders all over the country. Some states handle it differently, so I'm not exactly sure. By the way, if anyone doesn't get one of these and you want it, you can email me and I'll send you a copy of the presentation. Like in the liquor business, right? They do things like the pharmaceutical industry. They've got a way of doing it. There's not a perfected methodology for brands to push stuff through dispensaries yet, but there are a lot of companies that do it. So again, it remains to be seen how the best way to do it is, but yeah, there are companies that are trying all different kinds of things, and we do it by being super cool to the bud tenders, because the bud tenders kind of usually feel left out, right? There's the manager and the owner, and the bud tenders are just there to work and sell. So we do special stuff for the bud tenders. We send extra swag with every order. That makes them really love us, and one of them is eventually going to become a buyer, so they become our friend. Yes. Any other questions?
You know, as a processor, so that kind of piggybacks off.
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
What's your relationship with processors?
Well, I mean, a lot of people that are in that roll their own joints. We do a lot of custom cones. We do a lot of joint tubes. We'll probably get into categories of jars and concentrates and things like that probably at some point down the road. But as of now, I mean, we do custom everything. So, when you want to go to a trade show or when you want to give stuff out, we can make all that stuff for you, all your paraphernalia and whatnot. Okay. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much. I'm honored. Thank you. It's an honor to speak about the business, and I hope that your experience is as profitable and successful as mine has been. So God bless and best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, like I said,